Hans Christian Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen's father was a poor shoemaker. Even though they were poor, they had a good collection of books. Every evening, Hans's father read aloud to him stories from famous books. When Hans was 11 years old, his father died. Hans had to leave school because there was no money for his school fees. His mother wanted him to become a tailor and earn some money. But Hans wanted to be a writer. He told himself, "One day I will become a writer." Hans had no brothers and sisters and no friends. He was a lonely child. He was thin and tall and clumsy, and the boys in the town teased him. No one played with him. But Hans got the chance to hear stories from many people. He had a gentle and loving grandmother. She told him many stories. He also made friends with some women at a hospital for old and sick women. These women also told him many stories. When Hans was 14 years old, he left his village and went to a big city because he wanted to become an actor and a writer. But he soon realized that to become a writer, he needed to learn how to write without mistakes. He had left school at an early age, so he needed to go back to school. In the city, he met many famous writers and actors. Some of them felt sorry for him and helped him to get admitted in a big school. By this time, he was a big boy of 17 years, but he knew very little. So he was put in the second grade. The other boys made fun of him. Hans did not give up hope. Instead, he worked very hard. He passed the school final examination when he was 23 years old. Hans now started writing. At the age of 30, he finished his first book of fairy tales. When it was published, people liked the stories very much. He soon became famous as a writer for children. Hans used to act out the stories to make them lively. Children loved him and his stories, and he began to write more and more stories for them. He wrote 156 fairy tales in all. To write all these stories, Hans used ideas from the ones he had heard as a child from his father, his grandmother, and the old women in the hospital. He also made up many stories of his own. He got ideas from his own childhood days and from everyday things such as flowers, trees, birds, animals, children, and their toys. Thus, the shoemaker's son became a very famous writer. He was no longer lonely, and he had many friends. Hans died when he was 70 years old. Even today, children and grown-ups all over the world love his stories and love him for writing them.